Hey everyone, welcome to Gimme Growth. Today we're talking about early traction in the BULLSEYE framework with Jeff Goldenberg. Jeff is an excellent growth marketer based in Toronto. He's the head of growth for the hot Canadian lending startup Borrowell, and on the side runs a Facebook ad agency called Abacus with all that free time, right? In addition, he's the author to the Growth Hacker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a very cool, super tactical manual for people who want to learn all the different aspects of growth hacking. So Jeff, thanks so much for being here with us, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, and nice to chat with all of you guys, and nice to be amongst such a esteemed group of mentors. So let's get started and talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics, which is traction. Let me tell you who I am first, because that's the first slide. My name is Jeff. Thank you for the introduction, Dom. It's pretty much summarizes what I have here. I work with a lot of startups over the course of a year. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at a place called Mars in Toronto, which is a big public-private innovation center. And I deal with those companies and help them with go-to-market strategy. I mentor with two local Toronto accelerators, Techstars and 500 Startups. And I write and I blog on BetaKit, which is a Canadian tech blog. As Dominic mentioned, I spent last year writing the Growth Hacker's Guide to the Galaxy, which you should check out if you want to. It's kind of like a recipe book or a cookbook for marketers. And coming soon, as Dominic mentioned, Abacus Agency, my performance Facebook agency. So I definitely keep busy, and I definitely work with a lot of startups, and I definitely love talking with startups, so I'm excited to be doing this. And thank you, Dom. So I think this is my favorite startup book, including my own. And I mention them a lot in my book. It's called Traction. You should all buy it immediately. It's written by Gabe Weinberg, the CEO of DuckDuckGo, and Justin Mayers, who's an awesome growth hacker himself. The book defines traction as quantitative evidence of customer demand. It's traction is a sign that something is working, and traction trumps everything. So that's a very technical description, but basically traction trumps everything is what you need to remember. Traction is proof that you have product market fit, which you hear talked about a lot, and we'll talk about some more. And it's proof that people are interested in what you're selling. And that's really hard to achieve, but when you do, you have the platform to grow basically as quickly as your imagination will allow. So you want to see metrics that are showing you that people are interested in your product, but they're metrics that can't be faked and aren't what we call vanity metrics. You want to see real growth metrics. And VCs, when you go to raise money, as Dominic can attest to, will really want to see these true traction metrics. So, you know, sales and people writing you checks or buying the product, or converting deeply into the funnel, and high conversion rates, and some sort of indication that you know where these customers are going to come from. That's all traction. Traction is basically the proof that you've achieved product market fit, which means you have a product that people want, you have segments you can identify that are interested in it, and you figured out the important thing, which is the messaging and the value proposition that'll help you cross from product to market. So it's all really, really interesting stuff. You should spend a lot of your time thinking about traction and traction milestones. In fact, the book Traction has a chapter called Critical Path. And to me, that's like the biggest aha chapter in the book. It's really amazing. Talks about how you set the critical path. So you don't go from zero, like I use the example of Facebook. You don't go from zero to like the world's leading social network in one jump. You have a series of milestones that you've charted between today and world domination that if you nail, it'll get you where you need to go. So that's really important, and we'll talk about that later. So this is Mark Andreessen, a very famous venture capitalist. He says the number one reason he passes on entrepreneurs he'd otherwise like to back is they're focusing on product to the exclusion of everything else. And as a mentor, I see this all the time. I see engineering-led startups that are really overly focused on product. And the book presents what they call, and I think this is brilliant, the 50-50 rule. What the 50-50 rule is, you should be spending exactly 50% of your time on product development and 50% of your time on marketing, which at that stage is pre-marketing, customer development, and traction. And holding yourself accountable to the 50-50 rule is really important because I've seen companies that are too marketing driven. at the expense of product, but way more that are too product driven at the expense of marketing. You don't want to start your marketing on day 0 or day 1 of your product. You want to have been doing it long before. And I have a case study in the Growth Hacker's Guide to the Galaxy where I interviewed Ethan Song from Frank and Oak about how they did a pre-launch campaign, and that stuff's really important. The benefits of 50-50 rule are that you can pursue them in parallel. You can build better products because you'll be talking to your customers every day if you follow my advice, and doing customer development interviews and looking for the Achilles heel in the product, looking for what's wrong with it, not what's right with it. That was something that took me a long time and a number of startups to learn. But then you're ready for launch because you'll have been doing all this customer development. You'll be figuring out the message that moves the needle. You'll have traffic, you'll have customers, and you'll just hit the ground running when you launch. So super important. Another famous venture capitalist, and this, to be honest, was my big aha moment from the book Traction. This was something that probably changed my thinking about marketing strategy more than any other quote I've ever read. So hopefully it'll be impactful to you guys too. If you can get even a single channel to work, it's a great business. You're not going to die because you don't get multiple channels to work. You're going to die because you don't get one channel to work. And there's tons of examples of companies that grew massive just off one profitable acquisition channel. So where traditional marketers do the old throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, they're doing that in a very unstructured, we're going to try everything way. And to some degree, a growth hacker does the same thing. They throw stuff on the wall to see what sticks, but in a very disciplined and scientific fashion, and much more focused than 18 different channels. And we'll talk about that more later. But keep this in the back of your head. You need to get one channel to work, not 6, not 5, not 3. You have to get one to work. That to me is mind-blowing. So we're going to talk today about the Bullseye methodology. It's from the book Traction, and that's the best thing. I mean, if you think this idea is great, you can buy the book and you'll basically have a manual on how to do it. I do this with every new company I work with. I use it as basically ground zero or my foundation, my base layer for growth hacking, for figuring out what channels I want to test, in what order, and how. So to me, this is a growth hacking framework. They don't call it so much in the book, but they mean it. So it's a 5-step process. It's dead simple. You're going to kind of be disappointed on how simple it is, but trust me, it works. I've done this dozens of times. So we're going to analyze 19 different acquisition channels, all of which have been used in the past to grow startups quickly. We're going to brainstorm the 19 channels. We're going to rank and prioritize them. We're going to pick a handful, 3 to be precise, that we want to test. We're going to test them really rapidly and for relatively little amount of money. And then we're going to focus when we see a sign of life. Just checking in. Dominic, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything's going perfect. I'm just on mute so that there's no background noise from the AC.
No sweat. I just figured I would check in because it would be like devastating if I did this to myself.
Yeah, it's great. I'm cool. Right here listening. I'll let you know if anything changes.
All right, cool.
Bye-bye. Well, not bye, but see you soon.
Talk to you soon. So why is it important to do Bullseye? Mainly because as founders, we have biases. I think that's the plural of a bias. We're going to go with that, biases. So you can email me or tweet at me if that's not the correct plural. So founders have biases in favor of channels that they've either had success with in the past, have imagined having success with in the past, have fantasized about having success with in the past, use as a consumer and assume that everyone else does. So you have these biases in favor of channels, and you have these biases against channels. They're ones that you just can't imagine finding customers on, so you really discount them. What Bullseye makes you do is analyze them all, so we're not just guessing. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to predict where your customers are going to come from. And to me, the sign of a good marketer is he doesn't come in saying he knows where it's going to happen. He comes in saying, I don't know where it's going to come from, but I have a process that's going to unearth the answer as quickly and cheaply as I know how to do. And to me, marketing is about discovery. It's not about like Madison Avenue coming in with ideas and being like, this is what's going to win, because we really don't know. So as I mentioned, there's 5 steps to Bullseye. We're going to brainstorm, we're going to rank, we're going to prioritize, we're going to test, and then we're going to focus, or we're going to go back to the drawing board if we weren't able to get any traction in the first run. And that does happen. So, you got to stick with it. Key to growth hacking, and a lot of people don't talk about this, is that like maybe 2 out of 10 tests are going to work. So like it's totally average to do 6 in a row and have them not work. When I'm asked what a growth hacker is, like maybe the answer is just as simple as it's someone who's committed to the system and knows if he keeps plowing away and doing what he's supposed to do, he's going to unearth something important eventually. Because it does get pretty dispiriting at times, and you have to stick with it if you want to do this type of marketing. So these are the 19 acquisition channels we're going to talk about. Some of them are you wouldn't have thought of. Some of them are obvious. Some of them require some explanation. You see content marketing, business development, viral marketing, PR, offline ads. We're going to talk about all of these in detail, but I just want you to kind of get your mind accustomed to sort of what we're going to be looking at in terms of investigating these 19 channels, because some of these are so obvious you wouldn't even think of them as a channel. And then once we do, we're gonna brainstorm as many ideas as we can for each of the channels. You're gonna involve your whole team, all the key stakeholders, anyone who might have good ideas, and you're literally gonna say, okay, our acquisition goal is 100 sales. That's our first traction milestone. How would we use business development to acquire our first 100 sales? Go. And the team will brainstorm all the ideas they can on business development. I use a clock because this could go on for weeks. And feel free to take weeks if you want to, but getting down as many ideas from as many different stakeholders as you can, because the ideas are important. You're going to use these for a long time after, and a lot of times the ideas have sex and have baby ideas, and that's when things get really exciting. So it's really important. So we have our reams of ideas. We've got pages and pages of ideas. We're going to go through them, and we're going to rank them into 3 different categories. Again, don't worry, you buy the book, Gabe gets paid, you have an instruction manual on how to do it, everyone wins. So the ideas that you're not that excited about, you're going to dump in the outer circle. Those are the long shots. Jeff made you go through all 19, so you have to go through them. Some of them are going to suck. That's where these ones go. The middle circle are the possibilities. They could work. You're not the most excited about them, but they may have legs. Who knows? And then the inner circle are precisely 3 of the best bets, the ones that get your juices flowing, the ones that make you want to run to your computer and start testing immediately. Those are the inner circle ones. Occasionally there's companies that have trouble coming up with 3. More often than not, they have trouble whittling down from 6 to 3. But you have to do 3 because that's the optimal number to test at the same time. So we're looking for these 3 inner circle best bets. Just as I said, your task is to identify the 3 inner circle channels that make you really curious. Curious is a good word and a good test for this. It's the stuff that you're the most curious about. If you're not curious about any of them, find a marketer who's curious, because that's a great indication of a good growth marketer, someone who's super curious about everything. Then we're going to pick 3. In this example, the 3 that rose to the top were content marketing, search engine marketing, email marketing. The book suggests spending about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe $750 or $1,000 per channel, and rapidly testing all of them. A number of tests in each channel, very basic. A search engine marketing, maybe a handful of keywords over a handful of ads. Very simple. And here, what you're looking for is really the faintest sign of life. Like an explorer on Mars, you're searching for basic sign of life, something that even would suggest or compel you to investigate further. This is really important. You're not going to get a huge result right out of the box unless you're really lucky, in which case, great. You're going to find a sign of life, a response, a sign of resonance, that something in your messaging combined with your segmenting and targeting is getting people to elicit a response. And if you can prove that you can elicit a response, then you're going to say, hey, this is great, and you're going to spend a whole lot of time focusing on that channel and getting it better and running different tests and hypotheses and figuring out whether you are right that that channel has potential. So let's look at the 19 channels. The first one's viral marketing. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, but like I said, you've got that book, Traction. It's like a manual on how to do this, so no excuses. That's my motivational section, and you'll be happy to know it's over. Viral marketing, so this is getting other people to spread the word about your product. It's measured with this great viral coefficient that's measured with the letter K. Don't ask me why. Viral coefficient is the number of invites that each person sends out multiplied by the conversion rates of the invite. If your viral coefficient is above 1, it'll spread. If it's below 1, it will not. Again, you look for a basic sign of life that people are interested in sharing and responding to the offers, and you optimize over time. If you saw even a basic sign of life of a viral marketing, it would compel you to investigate further because it's a very efficient way of growing. That said, every company comes in saying, oh, we're going to spread virally, and so few of them do. So why? Because people don't spread stuff that's crap. They only spread stuff that's really good. Most products are not really good. You see the problem. But viral marketing is important. It's important to test. It's important to strive for. It's important to build into the product, etc. Some of the companies that use viral marketing successfully, very famous examples: Hotmail, Dropbox, and Facebook. Facebook, obviously, the network effect. The more friends you had on it, the better. And there were all those little notifications, invites. Dropbox, you got access to storage the more you shared. So people were like, if you liked the product and wanted more, you shared. I sure know I shared. And then Hotmail, back when not a lot of people had email addresses, they would put get your own Hotmail call to action below everyone's message, and everyone would send out hundreds of emails with calls to action. So that's viral marketing. Second thing is traditional public relations. Public relations means crafting your story in a way that different members of the media would care and would then get to write about. It's really hard. Again, it's something that people take for granted. Yeah, people are going to write about my story. Well, they're probably not. The trick to public relations, in my humble opinion, is you need to think about the story from the writer's angle and not from your angle. You need to take a story that's clearly promotional for yours and put it into an angle that they're actually going to get value from writing about. It's very tricky, but if you can get it to work, I mean, having an article is really awesome. You get a lot of traffic and attention. A couple of the companies that have used public relations: American Apparel, DonorsChoose.org, and Virgin. Public relations dovetails with another channel, bloggers, because what's happening now is a lot of mainstream media outlets are getting their ideas from some of the best bloggers. So when we look at the channel for targeting bloggers, that's often a way to then get back into traditional public relations, because that's how the modern news cycle works. Dominic, you still with me?
Yep, right here.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about unconventional PR, and the book defines unconventional PR as two things. One is like insanely good customer service, and the other is about publicity stunts. We'll start with publicity stunts. The author of the book Traction, Gabe Weinberg, is founder of DuckDuckGo, which is a private search engine. It's a search engine that doesn't sell your information to advertisers. And one of the things they did at launch was they bought a billboard that says, "Google tracks you, we don't. Search better at DuckDuckGo." And that's a wicked billboard to begin with, but what makes it particularly interesting is that at the time, he bought this one billboard and it was facing Google's office. So it got a ton of buzz and created millions of dollars of exposure. That's an example of unconventional PR. I know there was another payment processor that was competing with PayPal. You'll forgive me, I don't remember the name of the company. Dominic, if you remember, feel free to add it. But
the Ice Block?
The Ice Block, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
Damn. All right, well, the two of us can't remember. But we do remember the tactic, which means it was a good tactic. And at a PayPal-sponsored annual conference that PayPal ran, they put this huge ice block in the middle of the lobby with a message, something like, this company doesn't freeze your funds, because at the time, one of the problems with PayPal was they were freezing people's accounts. So they got a ton of attention with all the payments journalists there. And made a little bit of a stink. So if you can think of stuff like that, it's great. Yeah.
We pay.
WePay. That's exactly who it was. Nice. Did you Google that or did it come to you?
It was in my mind. I was nervous to say it because I didn't know if that company actually existed, but then I Googled it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Oh yeah. And then the other side of unconventional PR is insane customer service. I've never personally bought shoes from Zappos, but the people who do seem to like it a lot. And the reason they seem to like it a lot is because they've got really good customer service, and kind of transcends selling shoes. I have used the customer service at Shopify before, and it's awesome. So that's another great example of amazing customer service. That's unconventional PR. Search engine marketing, we're pretty familiar with. For the most part, it's Google AdWords. There are other search engines like Bing, and I do advertise on them, but Google makes up the majority. These are the sponsored ads at the top of search results that you buy through a bidding auction, and you're bidding for the exact keyword phrase. What's really nice about this is that A, people click on them. B, there's a lot of sort of growth hacking opportunities in the copy and the content and the long tail, so there's lots to sink your teeth into. C, it's super data heavy, and you get a lot of amazing customer data back, which is a reason that a lot of people micro test with Google AdWords, even if this isn't going to be a key acquisition strategy, because you can learn so much by sending people to different landing pages from different ads and headlines and stuff. So you can just learn so much. Where was I going with that? So, the fourth thing that's great is you're only competing against people that are buying your specific term. And there's usually a term, if you slide down the long tail enough, that you can dominate. And between those two things, there's a lot of opportunities. So Google AdWords marketing is awesome.
Can we just talk really quick about when we say long tail, that might not
Sure.
be familiar to everybody. Essentially what you're talking about there is like less traditional keywords. So if you were selling insurance, it wouldn't be, cheap insurance quote, because you'd be competing against Geico and Esurance, which would be too expensive. It might be like, how do I insure my Honda Nighthawk, or something that would be less traditional than what you're trying to search. That's what's referred to the long tail if you don't know that.
Yeah, and like the classic visual of this is a big dinosaur with a long tail, and you've got the head, and that's the most highly contested keywords. And those keywords could go for hundreds of dollars a click, depending on what the lead is worth and how competitive it is. So this isn't for everyone. Some industries you'd be crazy to attack with search engine marketing. But then you slide down the back of the dinosaur and you get into the lower monthly search volumes, but also less competitive long tail, like Dom was perfectly describing. So that's exactly it. Classic example is Amazon. Amazon sells a ton of books, but most of the books they sell are the long tail, the titles that sell 100 or fewer. And by amassing the entire long tail, by owning the entire long tail, they were selling more books than the bestsellers, which was the traditional model. You would put 10,000 books into a bookstore, and you would sell a lot of those 10,000 copies. Amazon, through the internet, discovered that you could aggregate the long tail and sell more books than by just selling bestsellers. Now, they were all also selling the bestsellers, so it was a huge aggregation move, and it worked really well. And it works really well with search engine marketing. Ancestry.com, Geico, who you mentioned, nice snipe there, Dom. Capital One, all those guys kill it. You'd really have to be smart to compete against the lead gen legends in search engine marketing, because that's where they play. At Borrowell, where we're looking to find qualified borrowers for our online lending product, Google's great because a lot of people are searching for loans online. But we have to balance that again is the credit quality, because we only service high credit customers. And oftentimes someone searching like personal loan online from their bedroom at night may not be said high credit customer. Whereas Facebook's the complete inverse. We're really good at targeting for, credit quality, but no one logs into their Facebook account in the morning looking to get a loan. So we have the motivations much lower, whereas Google, the motivation's high. So you really have to think about these things and target your marketing efforts accordingly. Social and display ads are two different segments, but they put together because you buy them similarly. Social ads is sort of my jam. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the other emerging networks. I spend most of my time with Facebook ads, and display ads are banner ads that you can buy on sites directly or through advertising networks. And really the common bond between the two is targeting options. You have just amazing targeting options nowadays with social ads, and you can really target a very fine combination of attributes to really make your marketing efficient. I was giving the analogy the other day of Facebook advertising versus buying an email list. So 10 years ago, you would take your demographics and you'd go to an email list buying company, and they would tell you which topics correlate the highest or index the highest for the demographics you're looking for. An example would be like, okay, so buy this 1,000,000-person home improvement list because it indexes high on household income, it indexes high on home ownership, it indexes high on male. If you were looking for those attributes, this list would be great. But let's say the targets in that list of the 1,000,000 are 250,000. You're basically paying for 1,000,000 to get at the 250,000, and you have to out-optimize the funnel on the 250,000 to make up for the 750,000 that you're paying for as waste. With Facebook, you get the targeting really tight. Your whole 1,000,000 is the people that are in your target. You essentially have zero waste on the targeting side. That's effectively the difference, and what's available to us now as marketers. It's never been a better time. University of Phoenix, one of the fastest growing companies, they've got a lot of their customers through social and display ads. Dollar Shave Club, it goes without saying to anyone that knows that brand, they built themselves on Facebook. Same with StubHub. StubHub did awesome with display ads on sports websites. There's a lot of leverage and a lot of opportunity in this channel. And that's not just because I have a bias towards it, like I mentioned earlier. Offline ads, billboards, anything. I mean, 15 years ago, there were no online ads. 20 years ago, it was all offline ads. Now there's all those companies, and they're still around selling stuff, and, they still have impressions. And if you could find ones that, speak to your specific target market, then they're very efficient. The opportunity with offline ads today in 2016 is that a lot of them are struggling with their business model as companies move more and more of their budgets towards digital. And because of that, there's better deals, there's cheaper rates, there's non-traditional partnership models, there's a little bit more leverage in the media buying. You can get in smaller and test. So definitely think about offline ads as well. And where you can use those. There's tons of offline ad opportunities that we can afford. Billboards are the most obvious example, and I've got them in the picture, and they're expensive. But even those could be negotiated, especially if you buy remnant inventory. Totally fussy about a specific area, you're willing to buy last minute, you got your creative ready, you can buy it cheaper. But like urinal ads, transit ads, like I think about transit ads all the time. New types of digital ads, ads in shopping malls. I mean, there's gazillion different types, and a lot of them are really cheap. So billboards, it's typically, I think DuckDuckGo put 10 or 13 grand into the billboard for a month. So it's not crazy. And that was in San Francisco in a nicer area. But yeah, just keep an open mind. That's all I'm saying. Search engine optimization, SEO. I don't want this to turn into an SEO discussion, but it's basically about doing the work required to get your most profitable, get your website to rank for the search terms that lead to the most profitable organic traffic. Because if you can do that and slowly over time replace your paid traffic with organic traffic, that's how you can scale massively. So at the beginning, you're going to pay for really expensive traffic, but you're going to need that traffic to validate your product market fit hypotheses. Then you're going to get better at buying traffic, and you're going to lower the cost of the paid traffic by getting better and understanding your market and your messaging and running a ton of growth hacking experiments, and you're going to get that down, hopefully to a point where it's profitable. Because what a lot of companies don't realize is that you need to get good at spending money. Saving money is not what investors are looking for. They're looking for your ability to efficiently spend money, drive money into a funnel that's profitable. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time optimizing your paid campaigns. But at the same time, if you're doing good blogging and content marketing and search engine optimization and getting in good high-value links, you're going to move up the search engine rankings. And if you can get near the middle of the top of page one, you're going to start to see your dependence on paid reducing and your benefit of organic increasing, and that's just when you're in like marketing nirvana. That's like what it's all about. But in some industries, the ship has sailed. You can't, like, it's too hard to SEO, and others it's a blank canvas. So it's really situationally dependent. But when SEO works, it works pretty special. And you can see a lot of the examples of companies that used SEO for early traction are directories or sites that have a lot of user-generated content, because that's a way that they can scale. That's their growth hack for scaling content and getting links out. That leads to content marketing. Now, I wouldn't even say it's a beef with the book. I mean, I think as the concepts in the book mature, some of the channels start blending into each other. And a question I get asked often that I don't always have a good answer for is like, aren't some of these table stakes? Like, shouldn't I be doing content marketing and talking to bloggers, even if that isn't my main acquisition channel? And I've never asked Gabe and Justin about it, but my sort of experience from 20 years in startups is these are major acquisition channels where you'll focus a lot of time, resources, and money. So if you're doing content marketing by blogging and writing the odd, evergreen white paper or something that you think you can make money off, that's great. Do that. Everyone should be doing that. Every company should be blogging. But if you're going to be spending like a lot of money on content production, and then you've got paid amplification plans to distribute it, like you're going to buy Facebook ads, or you're going to sponsor content, or you're going to pay bloggers, then it's more of an acquisition focused channel. And that's where we're looking at these three. So I think, does that make sense, Dom? Like, that's kind of how I draw the line between like, what should I be doing every day anyway as a best practice, like the table stakes of running a tech business in 2016 versus like, which are my channels that I'm going to focus on.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that.
Cool. So if you're going to spend a lot of money, that's a channel. If it's just something that you're going to do because it's the right thing to do, like SEO, like making sure all your pages are properly tagged, but just doing like the blocking and tackling. I always think that you should give the website to Google in exactly the way Google wants it given to them. And I'm not an expert on that, but find someone who understands that. And, that would be something you should do, even if you're not using SEO as a key target. Yeah. Content marketing, you can see some of the examples on the bottom. Content marketing 100% works. And it 100% has leverage. And if you're up against a big competitor, it's one of the best ways to attack them. One of my old mentors works at HubSpot. His name is Sam Malakarjunan, and he wrote a book called, apologies if I butcher the title, but I'll give you enough to find it on Amazon. It's called How to Outsell Amazon. Yeah, How to Outsell Amazon, I think. And it's basically like, if you're an e-commerce seller that's competing against Amazon, you need to win the customers at the top of the funnel through really amazing and helpful content. Because by the time they get to the bottom of the funnel and they're just looking for the cheapest, quickest way to get it, they're going to land in Amazon. So content marketing is writing amazing content, targeting very detailed personas of customer segments, putting the content in places where they look for helpful information, and basically just being really helpful. I'll give you a quick example. At Borrowell, we wrote a case study about a customer who borrowed $12,000 from us online at a fairly low interest rate to pay off credit card debt she had at a high interest rate, and save tons of money in interest by refinancing that debt with a lower rate, because with credit cards, everyone pays the same interest rate pretty much. So we wrote up that blog post. I tweeted it on my personal Twitter account. One of my friends asked me like, hey, I read that blog post and it sounds like the situation I'm in. Do you know anyone who does that? And I was like, yeah, in fact, I do. And I introduced him to Borrowell, and he described the process he went to like make sure we were legit and read the news articles and fill out the application and get an offer. Anyway, he refinanced like $35,000 of credit card debt and told me that like his life was better as a result of it. My point being, like, we wrote content that talked about our value proposition from the point of view of someone who had gotten a ton of value out of it, hoping that other people would see themselves in that content and it would resonate. And I saw it happening live, and it was awesome. Content marketing also turns you into a bit of an expert if you do it well, and that's really cool. So Moz.com and Rand Fishkin are SEO experts, mainly because they do great work, but also because they put out the best content in SEO. OkCupid, HubSpot for inbound marketing and just marketing in general. I mean, these guys convince you that they're the people who understand your product and your problems, and that goes a long way. Email marketing. Email marketing is not dead. It's still one of the most highly converting channels out there. Rule number one of email marketing is you should always be collecting emails. I always think about email collection as my secondary conversion. So if you're not ready to buy, that's cool. Give me your email address, because then we can stay in touch, and I'll nurture you over time. So email marketing is really awesome. In a couple of weeks, I'll have a presentation that I'm doing next week on my website, jeffgoldenberg.net, on 10 ways to hack your email marketing. So check that out if you think email is going to be a big part. Groupon sends their offer emails all the time. They make a ton of money off that. Twitter with their notifications, Monster.com and job hunting. All these guys kill it with email. Guaranteed, collect these email addresses. You have no idea how valuable they're going to be for you in a million different ways, and not just in the email channel 6 months down the road. So please collect email addresses at every opportunity. Engineering as marketing. So this is my favorite topic. I'm going to try to explain it in 3 minutes or less, 5 minutes or less. Engineering as marketing is basically building marketing into your product. So probably 10 or 15 years ago, Seth Godin wrote a book called The Purple Cow. I think it's an amazing, quick read for everyone. And basically what the purple cow means is if you're driving down the street and you see a black and white cow, you don't notice it even, and you sure don't mention it. But if you were driving down the highway and you looked out your window and you saw a purple cow, you'd pretty much tell everyone you know that you saw a purple cow. So the question is, how do you turn your company into a purple cow? How do you make it remarkable so that people will remark about it, which is what the term remarkable means. The best example of this was, again, HubSpot. That's because Brian and Dharmesh are genius. And when they were launching HubSpot, long before inbound marketing was a movement and even a thing, they had this thing called Website Marketing Grader. Website Marketing Grader let you put in your URL and your email address, and they would send you like a customized report on what you're doing well and poorly in the world of digital marketing as it was at the time. And they were able to generate like 40,000 leads as a result, monthly leads as a result of this program. And a lot of older people like me certainly remember putting their URL in, getting the report and being really impressed. And oh, by the way, they were also the people who could help you with the things you were doing crappy at, so it made total sense. A personal example happened this summer. It was really exciting. Borrowell, my company, again, online loans, think like Lending Club in the States, but 8 years before, like we're one of the first companies in Canada that does it. On June 20th, we became the first company in Canada that was able to offer Canadians their credit score for free with a partnership with Equifax. Now in the US, I was just in Denver. Like every third commercial is a free credit score commercial. So you guys are probably like, yeah, big deal. But in Canada, no one had ever been able to offer a credit score for free. And we started promoting Get Your Equifax Credit Score for free at Borrowell.com, and tons and tons of Canadians did that. And the ones that identified themselves as having the minimum credit score or above that we require, we were able to tell them, hey, by the way, you never heard of Borrowell before because we're a startup. We're Borrowell. We're trying to make financial services more transparent in Canada. We just gave you your credit score and saved you some money. We also do personal loans. You're above our minimum threshold, so you would probably qualify, and you've already confirmed your identity with us through the free credit score process. So we only need to ask you a few more questions, and then our algorithm will give you an offer that's based on your specific credit profile. And we were able to get a lot of people to convert from there to there. So we basically did something. Was it marketing? Yes. Was it customer acquisition? Yes. Was it content marketing? It was. It was kind of like content marketing on steroids. We were solving a problem digitally. Was it product? Absolutely. We needed a new front end and a back end to service it. Was it strategy? Yes. Was it business model? It could be. So like, what is growth hacking? Like growth hacking has to be something that sits in the hole between those functions, because the free credit score program, which was very successful, was the contributions of a lot of different not just departments, but ways of thinking within the company. So I think of engineering as marketing as lead gen. I ask the question generically, is there a piece of our product that makes sense to give away for free in exchange for an email address. Now, that for the SaaS people out there, that's not a free trial. Although I know you're going to fight me on that. I think a free trial is a very low bottom of the, now in 2016, is a very low bottom of the funnel conversion. I think people get offered dozens of free trials a day. It's almost table stakes. It takes a ton of time for a marketer to evaluate a free trial. You need something that's higher up in the funnel than a free trial. So something to think about. HubSpot did a great job. RJ Metrics did a great job. It's something that's worth thinking about, because if you can figure it out, you could 10x, 100x, 1000x your business, and you could reshape the funnel, which is awesome. Growth marketing really is about thinking about how to turbocharge the funnel or reshape it. You can target bloggers. They're very influential. Mint.com is a great example. Noah Kagan got some early traction and like that basic proof of life from saying, a lot of my early signups are coming as a result of links that bloggers are putting out. So he sent like 100 bloggers checks for $500 and said, I'd like to buy 30 days of banners. And he got, I think, also 40,000 customers or 4,000 customers. I can't remember, but a great result from the bloggers who agreed to keep his check and run his banners for a month. They were very targeted. They were in the financial space. And like I mentioned too, they're very influential with mass media, and they're sort of breaking stories that mass media end up picking up on their slower news cycle. So they're really cool. The best way to target bloggers is to build relationships with them. Don't just call them when you need something. Give them access to stuff. Let them inside, the walls. Let them see what you're all about. Get to know them personally. That's the best way to do it. Bloggers have a long list of people that just call them when they need something. And yeah, if there's something in it for them, if you've done what I told you to do before and basically adjust the story to fit their need, you'll get it sometimes. But this is a much better way to do it. Mint.com, Quora, Code Academy, all great examples of targeting bloggers. Business development. This is another one of my favorites. 3 of my 6 startups were deals where I went to really big companies and told and licensed something from them to turn into a new, different type of business. Small companies think that they can't do business with big companies, and I disagree. They can. They just need to figure out what's important to the big company at the time where they're going to go propose their business, and again reshape or reframe what they're proposing in the way that's going to fit what the big company's issue is. Oftentimes it's money and budget, so like that's obvious. Oftentimes what they need, but there's definitely advantages that startups have over big companies that have positioned properly and within the frame of what these big companies need are worried about. It can be really big. A business development deal could be all you need to build a huge company. So it's really important to think about. Question I ask myself is, who has my customers but aren't using them in the way that I want to use them, and probably wouldn't be planning on it. And you'll see a lot of like marketplaces like Kayak. They obviously have to do business development because they need to stock up the supply side of their business.
So I want to just jump in here really quick too, because one of the things, so BD is super attractive. I love it too. The majority of the early traction that I've ever gotten in companies has usually been from BD. At the same time, you can also go way down the rabbit hole with a bigger company if you're just a startup trying to build some sort of a partnership, or getting them to like give you access to their customers, and then you have essentially foregone everything else. So that's just like one thing to be careful of in like trying to make sure that action happens early in these types of partnerships in these deals.
Yeah, I mean, I was remiss in not even talking about that because it's really important. One of the biggest risks of entering into something big like that is exactly what you said, wasting 6 or 9 or 12 months and then having it and taking your hand off the wheel. And that's a huge risk. The best way from my experience to hedge that risk is to make sure you're talking to someone senior who can make the decision early. What happens when you end up wasting a lot of time is you need a champion. So don't get me wrong. Like, you need someone at the tactical executional level that can champion for you, but you have to be talking to the decision maker fairly early in the sales cycle to hedge against wasting the time. Because I think that's the biggest risk. Do you agree, Dom?
Yeah, totally. Especially like lots of times what happens is you'll end up talking to somebody else who's in BD, and they're going to be trying to get something from you, and they won't be intelligent enough. Like, nothing against them, but like they're going to think that they're actually going to get like something from you. You need to be talking to somebody at a level who understands that you really have nothing to offer other than something that's value add to their customers, and it will be down the line a new potential revenue stream for them. So who that is depends from company to company. If company's big enough, they have somebody in partnerships usually. Sometimes it's corp dev, but Paul Graham has a great essay on this too, like stay away from corp dev like too early on. But it's generally not sales. It's probably somebody who's in like the product function who understands that you're a great addition to their customers from a value add perspective.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other clues that these are good companies to talk to is they've done similar types of deals that you're proposing in the past. Like, I wouldn't like to be the first company to go to a big company and try to license something, but if they have a licensing department, they've already got the contracts, they know in their head what percentage royalty they want, they know ahead how they'll divide up marketing support, they know in their head if they want upfront guarantees or not. The same thing like with partner development, even if it's not a license, like, has this company done partnerships with smaller companies before? If so, figure out who worked on those deals. You know that the forms exist, that the appetite exists, and I don't really want to be the first person to do a deal with a big company. That would be pretty painful. And don't assume they can move at your pace. Even a fast big company can't move at the pace that a pre-traction or just post-traction startup can move at. And disqualify companies that can't move on your pace. A lot of times I would ask them in a perfect world, how long would that work? And if it didn't fit with my critical path, then it wasn't a fit. And that's a totally valid reason to go find another partner. Direct sales, this is more B2B, but direct sales is a great channel for a lot of B2B players. Rackspace, Box, all those companies. It's pretty straightforward. But if you do think of, that, okay, we're getting some ideas in this brainstorm on sales, we may spend some time there, get really tactical in terms of how you would do the sales. Who's doing them? How many do you need? Do they have to be managed? Is it inbound or outbound? Is it going to be conferences? Where are we going to find the people? What's our process going to be? Who's our target? What's the sales cycle going to look like? I'm not a B2B guy really, but all those questions that you would have to answer, like, don't just say, yeah, we're going to have salespeople and they're going to go out and sell. Actually, figure out what it would look like. Affiliate programs are wicked. You can have your own affiliate program, but that depends on your own traffic. Or you could be a part of third-party affiliates where they bring affiliate traffic to you too. If you have a product that affiliates will like and a good cost per acquisition to them or bounty for doing it, this can scale really nicely. Target, Amazon, Amex, all those guys have affiliate programs. I have one friend who has a shopping curation app, and it's basically like a layer that sits on top of Amazon, picks out products that they want to curate and makes 8% just as part of their standard affiliate program. So the affiliate business is big. Existing platforms, I'll just give you some examples because it's the best. Evernote grew as iOS grew. Zynga grew as Facebook grew. Angry Birds, again, with iOS and iPhones. Using Zynga as an example, Zynga found Facebook right at a time when Facebook wanted to roll out Facebook Canvas apps, like all being housed on the Facebook platform, and Zynga had these games. So Facebook gave them access to API early and access to products early and promoted them, and they got really big. So a lot of times I think about, are there existing platforms that are growing that I could sort of grab onto the coattails and pull along and be part of their success? Trade shows, I mean, this is B2B and B2C. I personally love trade shows. I love having all those leads in one place. I love having the sort of the traffic around all day. I'm just having all those people in one place is just really efficient, and traffic around. A couple of things that I like on trade shows. I like to speak because that sort of establishes myself as a thought leader. And then when they come to my booth, they've got a little bit of an awareness. So if there's a topic that you're really knowledgeable about and it ties into what you do, then that's a great fit. I do a lot of homework before. I look at the list and I figure out who's going to be there from companies I want to meet. I even try to like set up meetings ahead of time before things get crazy hectic. So I go into it with a little bit of a tactic and an objective, like how many people I want to meet, what I want to do. But they can be really effective.
I want to just jump in on trade shows.
Sure, yeah.
Doing homework, 100%. One thing to look at is like, so for example, say you're trying to sell software to e-commerce and you want to go to shop.org. Doing a booth at shop.org was a gigantic mistake from what one of my companies, Talkable, did. We wasted, or actually no, it was IRCE, but shop.org was even more expensive. But any of these things, if you're going to spend $10,000 just to get the booth, then you're going to spend another $10,000 getting there and using their
everything.
And it's just like you stand there and the people walk by you and they look at you. They're like, "Oh, you're a vendor. We don't want to talk to you." And so like the booth thing for startups is pretty much unsustainable. So what Jeff said is really good. Is like speaking is the absolute best thing. So if I wanted to speak at shop.org or IRCE, I would look last year at that hashtag and I would see which hashtags had like, the most popularity. And I would look at like what people were speaking about. And then I would try and do some research around like new topics that are related to that. And I would try and pitch that like very early on as like an expert. And I would develop content around that so that I become like, I look like an expert for that. Also, of course, like setting up meetings ahead of time is the most important thing. Like when we were doing Talkable, the only way that we got Gap as our very first customer was we knew that we were going to shop.org. We had only been in business for literally about 4 or 5 months. And I just relentlessly, but in a charmingly persistent way, he set up marketing for Gap. And he set up a meeting with us. And like literally right there, he's like, "Yeah, like we will do a trial with you. This is great." And we didn't buy any booth. My co-founder and I probably shouldn't admit this on a panel. We actually went to Kinko's and copied badges. So we like forged badges so that we could like go into the trade show early because we didn't have the money to actually like buy the badges. So like use trade shows and like the surrounding, everybody being there, crash parties. That's when most of the deals are done, is like out when people are drinking. So like they're fantastic because it's a concentrated environment of like-minded people.
The trade show is like the arena for the hustler.
Yes, totally.
I won't admit some of the stuff I did because when I was young, hustling with these types of events, the one thing that I will talk about in general terms is that there's going to be events that are too expensive for startups to attend, and you could be pretty creative about ways to make your presence known. What have I done? There was one trade show that a competitor was sponsoring and got exclusive on. So I figured out who was coming, like the VIPs, and I had like I threw like a little like open bar party the night before and invited them all because there wasn't anything the night before. And then I got, a few dozen of the bloggers that were coming to this event to come to our event and hang out, and we got to actually meet each other and talk and become friendly and friends, and like it was great. Yes. Another thing I did was I hijacked that conference's hashtag. So I had a friend who has like, I wouldn't say it's an Uber competitor, but he has like the software that lets taxis Uberize themselves. And I got him to make me a promo code for like a $15 ride because I knew a lot of the attendees were from out of town. And then I hijacked the hashtag every hour or so, telling the attendees to use this hashtag courtesy of us to take a free ride in the city. And people were like thanking us for it. And it was great.
Yeah, it's the trade shows are all about hijacking. And we did something where like my co-founder and I thought he was crazy and I was embarrassed to do it, but I did it. He wore bunny ears and he got me a pair and I wore bunny ears. And then we started tweeting and people were like, "Why the bunny ears?" Like click here to find out. and everybody was like really curious. So they clicked there, and we started to do a guest list for a after party because nobody was doing an after party. All these big companies, they do this formal kind of like party from like 9 to 12. But when people go to conferences, they want to like go out, right? So we teamed up with a couple other scrappy startups that were in the Chicago area. And we had a loft, like an underground loft, and we had a DJ. And we were able to throw a really cheap party that was an underground party. And then everybody knew us for that. And the bunny ears were the key to getting people there. So like, really be creative when it comes to this type of stuff.
I want to sponsor like a bathroom attendant who gives you like, turns the faucet on for you and gives you like a mint and stuff like that. Because everyone uses the same bathroom all day long and everyone's going to go through there.
That's a good idea.
And it's just going to be like, oh yeah, here you go, sir. Compliments of my company. But yeah, be scrappy. Offline events, meetups, in certain situations, these can be really good. Instead of sponsoring or participating in someone else's event, put your own together and try to get some buzz. I know good meetups in Toronto are really popular. There's like a good one every night now. It's really like blowing up. And you know what makes it good? The presenters, the topics, the attendees, the focus a lot of times. So I do think you can put together these events and get people to come. Examples of companies that use offline events well. Speaking engagements, we just talked about. I'll tell you, whenever I speak, there's people who want to work with me after, so I've seen it firsthand. It works. So if you can do that. It's great in B2B too. Because people want to buy from people they trust. People want to buy from people who they believe understand the problems that keep them up at night. And this is your chance to sort of prove that. Community building. It's a very generic one, but like anything you can do to create a bond between members is great. Again, there's some table stakes in this. There's some overlap with other channels, but there's definitely some ideas. IFL Science, that account on Facebook, that's someone who lives just outside of Toronto and started that site, and that site is, or that page, and that page is massively valuable, just based on volume and engagement. So I'll wrap this up with Paul Graham's message about do things that don't scale. And he says, actually, startups take off because the founders make them take off. Common unscalable thing founders have to do at the start is to recruit users manually. Near all startups have to. You can't wait for users to come to you. You have to go out and get them. So this is really one of the many oxymorons of startups, is like, go build something that scales, but at the same time, do the things that don't scale. So I think the best learning from here is like, don't use lack of scalability as an excuse to not do what you need to do to onboard the first users, because getting first users is hard, and it gets exponentially easier with every sort of another level of customer acquisition. I remember right at the beginning of Borrowell, when it felt like every loan was really hard, someone from Lending Club came and talked to us and said, like, I remember our first X, it was really hard, and just trust me, like, it's going to get easier and easier. And then we got to see it getting easier and easier, and it'll hopefully continue to get easier and easier. So that's really important advice. I'll just wrap up, of course, with a reminder of my book. It's got 100 growth hacking recipes organized over 3 stages of startup: product market fit, which most of you guys would probably be in, and transitioning to growth, and then scaling. It's got 9 case studies where I interviewed CMOs, founders, heads of growth from some of the fastest growing companies like Shopify, Zenefits, Frank and Oak, lots of others. Probably my favorite part of the book. And then it's got all the tools and resources, because the goal of my book was effectively to empower non-technical marketers to growth hack, like convince non-technical marketers that they don't need to be a coder to learn how to growth hack. And that's what I wanted to do. If you want to connect with me, I'm part of the Gimme Growth Facebook page, so feel free to holler at me there. This is my Twitter handle, and this is my blog. And yeah, feel free to say hi.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for putting that together and sharing that with us.
My pleaswill.
I have a couple of questions that I've documented. So
cool.
You still have a couple minutes. I'd love to go through them. So,
sure.
Okay. Will you give us a couple examples of like where you have found, like from like the very early days, like today on our call, for example, there's some companies that don't yet have any customers, and they're looking at like they built a list of like 100 people, right? Like an email list. In some of the startups that you've launched, where have you focused most of your effort into actually finding your first audience?
Oh man, I hate the depends answer.
Yeah.
But it's so it's like I spent 6 or 8 years with a business where we taught people how to play poker. And the thing about teaching people how to play poker is every situation is different. It depends on hundreds and hundreds of, different things. Selchuk told me the other day, his definition of a startup is, an early stage company that has hundreds of assumptions that they need to like go through and prove. And every situation is so dependent. That said, there are channels that I see a lot of companies use early. Like I mentioned, AdWords, as long as you've got, like a basic amount of average monthly searches, you can use AdWords early. And it's not just to test it as an acquisition channel, like to make sure that you're paying low enough cost per click to be efficient, but you can also test so many things, which is why so many people use it. You can test messaging, value proposition, ads, landing pages, calls to action, funnel. Like there's so much you can test. So even though that's expensive traffic, a lot of companies find themselves pushing AdWords at the beginning because it's dependable traffic if there's an amount of search. And that high motivation that we talked about earlier can overcome a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Social media marketing for sure. A lot of, especially B2C companies, test Facebook early because of how targeted and how precise they can get with the targeting. Email marketing, you've collected a couple hundred email addresses. Well, there's no minimum list size to do email marketing, so just do it. The guys from Zenefits, the CMO from Zenefits when he was new, spent 3 months full-time A/B testing email subject lines. I wrote about it in the book. Because he knew, like, if he always had a challenger up against a champion, by the time he got through that process, he would have, like, his messaging distilled to the perfect message. Mm-hmm. I think that's the ultimate growth hack. The ultimate growth hack is not just product, it's not just market, but it's that messaging to connect it. When we went from a convoluted loan message with Borrowell to, like, get your credit score for free, get your Equifax credit score for free at Borrowell.com, the conversion rates went through the roof because the message was easy to understand and quick to act upon.
Well, you had a really good, that's a great segue. You had a good soundbite or conversation topic about that in Toronto when we did the dojo, about how saying like refinance for your kid's education is very different than, refinance your car loan. And even though everything is exactly the same, the value optimization is completely different. Do you want to share just a little bit of an anecdote about how important it is to actually be very like micro specific to different segments?
Yeah, well, the first thing that most of you will do wrong, no offense, I've done it many times, is that you'll pick 5 customer groups and you'll basically build 5 different companies. Like the pivot pyramid says, you can't build 5 different companies for 5 different customers. You have to pick the one that's going to be your beachhead, your first move, and you have to like slaughter it. You have to kill it. So the first thing is you have to take the 5 that you're thinking about and pick the one. And then within that one, you have to segment it into really reachable different people. So at Borrowell, we started with like anyone who wants a convenient online loan instead of going to the bank because the bank process sucks. And then we moved to, we have a whole bunch of, the data shows us that we have a whole bunch of people who are interested in taking loans. So let's create use cases. We've got credit card refinancing, other debt refinancing, home improvement projects, travel, small business, get married, get a car, whatever. So then we could shrink that down to all these different use cases, segment them, and then talk to them differently. Because the way you would want to tell someone to finance their wedding is a lot different than you would want to tell someone to finance their credit card debt, which was what you were getting on. And then even then, we realized that so many people were doing credit card because the value proposition was so stark and obvious that, we focused a lot of our attention. So, it's like a zoom pivot. You're zooming either in and out. You're zooming in as a pivot because you found a group that's worth focusing completely on. There's hundreds of billions of dollars of credit card debt in Canada. So it's not like zooming into credit card debt was really shrinking our TAM, total addressable market, or our market size. Sometimes you need to zoom out like Airbnb did. where it's like they started as like a conference alternative, and then they were like, screw that, everyone could benefit, and then they zoomed out. So it's a very good point. But you want your marketing to move towards as close to one-to-one as possible. So it feels like someone wrote the article, the email to me and not to the whole list. We were really bad at it at the beginning, and then we got better and better and better.
Yep. And a lot of that's about collecting information up front without having a lot of friction. So
yeah, there's tons of ways on Facebook to do it.
Yep.
Different campaigns would collect people into different funnels. Instead of putting one email collector on your page, put same collector, but 5 different lists. So people who came from each page can then get dumped into their own funnel. Mm-hmm. We created a quiz, like a financial personality quiz. The objective was to figure out what value proposition was important to the person. So then we could send them like a persona specific message. So yeah, we think about that a lot.
Cool. Yeah, that's it's definitely probably the most challenging and frustrating piece, at least for me.
Yeah.
When you're going through all these different channels, right, and you're picking 3, how do you, or even just 1, right? How do you know specifically when is your gut check on something's working? Like how would you identify? Like, let's say you're doing Facebook.
What does success look like at that early stage, right?
Yeah. Because it's all very murky, especially if you don't really have any benchmarks. And benchmarks are definitely something that we like to stay away from. Like, I like to stay away from personally, because everything is different for everybody, and it ends up in a depends thing. But just you personally, like, what is your emotional gut check there when you feel like something?
Sure. So first off, it's more obvious. It's usually more obvious than you expect. It's not subtle when it works. Mm. The first thing I like to say when I'm asked this question is you can roll a complete 0. Okay. I had a cooking product that I sent to a 1 million person food and wine cooking list, and not one mofo on that whole list bought my thing. So don't stop applying 2% to everything, because it's a conversion rate. 2% is a lot of zeros and a bunch of 15s and 20s that average to a 2. Don't apply 2% to your list and expect it to happen. And what you're looking for, you're testing for, is resonance, that the way you describe your product to the group you selected has resonance, and they respond. People are clicking. You're seeing some click-through rate. You're seeing the odd conversion, even if it's not many. People are leaving your email addresses, and it's working better than the other stuff. A lot of the other stuff will be like 0, 0, 0 across the board. Okay. So typically it's more obvious. But at the same time, you don't want to be greedy. You're just looking for – it's like looking for people to put up their hand to say, like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in what you're saying. In the book, we talk about value proposition testing, which to me is the ultimate product market fit test. It's like, can you distill your offering down to 5 or 7 words, put it in front of a very specific group on Facebook, and get a result? Frank and Oak distilled their message down to premium threads for under $50, put that value proposition in front of fashionista groups, and people were clamoring over each other to pre-sign up. Drip Email, who's in my book, did their value proposition was lightweight email automation that doesn't suck. When they put that in front of SMB marketers, they were like, cool, I want lightweight, but every time I try it, it sucks. So that resonated. You can test for product market fit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so what this lesson is going to lead into is a practical exercise for all the teams to go through the Bullseye framework. And
awesome.
Also do value optimization to figure out what is working for their customers, what message is resonating. So that sounds good. That probably is a great place to wrap it up right now.
Cool.
And, looks like there's a UPS guy here. Sorry, 1 second, man. But I'm going to stop the recording. I'm just going to say goodbye to you too, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. You guys are in good hands in this program. And I'll give you one quick pointer. I've been through a lot of programs, both on the startup and on the mentor side. And I think 100% of the time you get into it, what you get out of it, what you put into it. So really take advantage of the opportunity you have and the people who are going to be willing to talk to you, and really put everything into it. And that's how you're going to guarantee the best chance of getting the most out of it.
Awesome. All right, cool. I'll talk to you in a second.
Cool.